Empath, chosen ones, why your sense of responsibility is actually a huge gift. There's a weight you've been carrying for as long as you can remember. You might not even know when it started, but it's always been there, this deep, almost sacred sense of responsibility. Responsibility for your family's well-being, responsibility for holding peace in the room, responsibility for making sure others feel okay, even when you don't. You walk through life tuned into everyone else's energy like a radio that can't be turned off. You feel what they feel, you notice the things others ignore, you carry emotions that don't even belong to you. But here's the truth that no one ever told you. This isn't a burden you were cursed with. This is the gift you were born with. Empaths are not just emotionally sensitive people. We are energetic bridges. We are spiritual transmitters of pain, peace, presence. And that sense of responsibility you feel so deeply, it's not coming from guilt. It's coming from your calling. It's coming from the sacred assignment that your soul agreed to long before you even arrived here. You were never meant to be numb. You were never meant to live a detached life. You were meant to feel, because feeling is your compass, your language, your power.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
And yes, it's overwhelming. No one teaches us how to live with this kind of depth. We grow up being told we're too much, too emotional, too sensitive, so we try to suppress it. We try to be what the world expects, strong in the way they define strength, detached in the way they define power. But our soul rebels, because the truth is, our sensitivity is not a flaw, it's a frequency, and the sense of responsibility we carry isn't weakness, it's awareness. We see what others don't, we feel what others won't, and that makes us different. That makes us chosen. But let's be honest, being chosen doesn't feel like a blessing when you're constantly exhausted, when you're always the one fixing, holding space, picking up the pieces. When people lean on you but rarely ask how you're doing. When you sense someone's pain before they even say a word. And yet, you still show up. You still care. You still carry the weight, even when no one thanks you for it. Why? Because something inside you knows this is what you were made for. Now here's where it gets deep. That sense of responsibility, it's not just about other people, it's about energy. You're not just managing emotions, you're managing vibrations. You're regulating the spiritual frequency of your environment. You're often the emotional thermostat of the room. And when things are off, you feel it instantly. That's not anxiety, that's perception. That's spiritual intelligence, and the reason it feels heavy is because we've never been taught how to use it properly. We've been absorbing when we should have been transmuting. We've been carrying when we should have been channeling. We've been surviving when we were designed to transform. So, how do we shift? How do we stop letting our gift burn us out and start letting it power us up? It begins with a radical reframe. Your sense of responsibility is not your enemy. It's your entry point into purpose. It's the evidence that you are a guardian of energy, a keeper of peace, a vessel of compassion. But a vessel must be filled before it can pour. And that's where so many of us get it wrong. We pour without ever stopping to refill. We take on the emotional weight of everyone around us, but we forget to ground ourselves, to cleanse, to release what isn't ours. Let me ask you something that might change your life. What would your days look like if you treated your energy as sacred as your time? What if you protected your sensitivity the way warriors protect their weapons? Not out of fear, but out of reverence for their power. You were never meant to carry everything alone. That's not what being an empath means. It means you were meant to be aware, not overwhelmed. It means you were designed to feel deeply, not to drown in it, but to lead through it. Because when you learn to work with your responsibility instead of against it, something incredible happens. You start to choose what you carry. You stop absorbing every emotion and start alchemizing it. You begin to walk into a room and shift the energy, not because you're trying to fix everyone, but because you've learned to anchor yourself in your own frequency first. That's the power of the empath chosen one. We don't lead with force, we lead with presence. We don't dominate with noise, we transform with depth. And the more we accept our sense of responsibility as a gift, the more we begin to embody the frequency we were born to emit: peace, clarity, love, truth. That's what we're here to do, not to save everyone, but to remind them, to awaken them, to help them remember who they are. So if you've spent your life feeling like you care too much, like you carry too much, like you notice too much, know this: you were meant to. Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because you're equipped. Your soul came into this world knowing that it wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it. And as you begin to reclaim your gift, as you start to honor your sense of responsibility as a sacred tool, not a chain, you will rise. Not in noise, but in truth. Not in ego, but in essence. Your responsibility is not your burden, it's your blueprint. It's the evidence that you were chosen not to carry the world alone, but to light it up from the inside out. The heart of the guardian, how empaths spiritually stabilize the world without even knowing it. There is something extraordinary happening beneath the surface of this world, and most people never notice it. But you do. You always have. You've walked into rooms and felt tension before a word was spoken. You've sensed when someone was about to break long before they admitted it, and you've been the quiet anchor, the one holding the energy, holding the peace, holding the balance. But here's what no one told you. That role you've been playing so naturally, so instinctively, is not ordinary. It's sacred. It's spiritual. You are not just an empath. You are a guardian, a stabilizer, a soul whose presence recalibrates the frequency of a space without making a sound. This is the deeper truth that most empaths never fully realize. We're not just feeling things, we're regulating things. When chaos enters a room, we instinctively shift to absorb, soften, and neutralize it. We lower our voice when someone's angry. We become extra kind when someone's bitter. We listen more when someone's breaking. Not because we're trying to be heroes, but because the soul knows what it's doing. The soul knows that when the world's emotions are out of balance, someone has to hold the line. And often, that someone is you. But carrying that role without understanding it can be draining. We end up confused, overwhelmed, or even resentful. We wonder why we're always the ones people come to, why we're always the emotional safe space, why we walk away from conversations feeling heavier than when we entered them. It's because we're spiritual stabilizers. We're tuning forks for emotional energy, and when people get near us, they start to resonate with our frequency, whether they know it or not. Now imagine what happens when you begin to own that, when you stop treating your empathy like a weakness and start treating it like a technology, a divine instrument. You begin to see that you're not just randomly absorbing energy, You're transmuting it. You're helping people subconsciously regulate emotions they don't know how to process. And when you ground yourself, when you stay rooted in your own truth, you become a living bridge between chaos and clarity. That's the power you've always had, the power that's been quietly flowing through you every time you stepped into the tension and brought peace. Every time you were the calm in the storm. But let's be clear, this power doesn't mean you're here to fix everyone. That's a trap many empaths fall into. We confuse spiritual stabilization with personal responsibility. We think we have to solve everything we feel, but you don't. Your job isn't to carry everyone's pain. Your job is to anchor yourself in your own light so strongly that others remember their own. You're not here to be their healer. You're here to be their mirror, to reflect what's possible when someone chooses alignment over chaos, presence over panic, love over fear. So ask yourself, what would change in your life if you saw yourself as a guardian of energetic order? Not a victim of emotional overload, but a master of emotional transmutation. Would you still tolerate the same environments? Would you still say yes to every draining conversation? Would you still shrink in spaces where your light was needed the most? Because here's the truth, the world needs you now more than ever. It needs your groundedness, your compassion, your ability to feel and stay. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone is built to. But you are. You were designed to operate with your heart wide open and your spirit deeply anchored. And when you live from that space, you don't just survive the emotional storms, you quiet them. Not with force, not with control, but with presence. And presence is your greatest gift. It's not about what you say or do, it's about the energy you bring into a room. Your calmness when others panic, your softness when others harden, your clarity when others are lost in noise. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you a guardian. And that's why you've always felt a little different, because you are. You weren't meant to be like everyone else. You were meant to be the one who feels what others deny, so you could help them remember what they forgot. The more you accept this role, not as a burden but as a sacred trust, the more your life will align. You'll stop attracting chaos and start commanding peace. You'll stop being drained and start being charged by your presence. Because when you operate from truth, your sensitivity no longer depletes you, it fuels you. It becomes the source of your spiritual authority. So don't hide it. Don't downplay it. Don't let the world make you think that your responsibility to feel, to ground, to hold space is weakness. You are the spiritual nervous system of this planet. You are the emotional anchor in a drifting sea. And while the world may not always see it, your presence is the quiet force that keeps everything from falling apart. The divine filter, how to stop absorbing everyone's pain and start channeling your gift for purpose. There is a moment of awakening that comes for every empath when the weight becomes too much to carry. When you realize that this isn't just about being kind, being available, being emotionally tuned in, it's something else. Something deeper. Something spiritual. You've been absorbing pain that doesn't belong to you. You've been holding space for people who never once asked you how you're doing. You've been silently taking on the world's emotional wounds as if they were your own, and the exhaustion has reached a point where your soul starts to whisper, there has to be another way. And there is. That way begins when you activate your divine filter. You see, empaths often walk through life like emotional sponges. We pick up everything: anger, sadness, unspoken tension, buried trauma. And because we're wired to care, we don't just notice these things, we internalize them, we carry them, we even try to heal them before we understand the cost. But here's the truth: few people will tell you just because you feel it doesn't mean you're supposed to keep it. Just because it passes through you doesn't mean it belongs to you. You are not a dumping ground for unprocessed energy. You are a filter, a divine instrument that was never meant to absorb and hold, but to sense, transmute, and release. This is where everything changes. The shift from absorption to channeling, from emotional exhaustion to spiritual purpose. Because when you understand that your sensitivity is a tool, not a trap, you begin to work with it instead of against it. You begin to discern. You start asking, is this mine? Before you attach, you start grabbing every energetic thread that finds its way into your field. You start becoming intentional about what you allow to stay inside your emotional body. Think about it. How much of your current stress, fatigue, or anxiety is even yours? How many of the emotions you've been carrying came from someone else's projection, someone else's pain, someone else's chaos that you unknowingly took on as your own? As empaths, we are naturally open channels, but openness without boundaries is a recipe for burnout. And the truth is, you can be open and protected. You can be deeply compassionate without being constantly depleted. That's what the divine filter is for. This filter isn't made of walls, it's made of awareness. It's not about closing your heart, it's about training your heart, teaching it how to let things move through instead of getting stuck. It's a spiritual practice, a daily discipline. It's grounding yourself in your own energy before you enter a room. It's clearing your field after every intense interaction. It's learning to feel without holding, to witness without carrying, to support without sacrificing your own center. Let me ask you something profound. What if your role as an empath isn't to take on other people's pain, but to illuminate it, to reflect it back with so much clarity and love that they are finally able to heal themselves? What if your gift is not about rescuing others, but reminding them of their own light? Because here's the secret: people don't heal when you absorb their pain. They heal when they see a version of themselves that is whole, grounded, present. And that's your true power. Not to carry their suffering, but to hold space for their transformation. You cannot hold space if you are drowning in what they're meant to release. You cannot be a lighthouse if you keep diving into the ocean to save every sinking ship. You are not the ocean, you are the shore, the place people come to remember peace, and for that, you must anchor yourself first. This is why spiritual hygiene is not optional for empaths. It's essential. You must cleanse your field as often as you cleanse your body. You must protect your energy as fiercely as you protect your mind. Because if your gift is to feel, then your responsibility is to filter. To know what is yours, to stay rooted in your truth, to clear out the emotional residue that isn't aligned with your purpose. Only then can you channel the full power of your empathy into something meaningful, something healing, something transformational. And when you do, everything changes. You stop being drained by your sensitivity and start being energized by it. You begin to tap into higher frequencies of intuition, creativity, and spiritual insight. You become a vessel not just for emotion, but for wisdom. You start hearing the guidance that's been trying to reach you all along but was muffled by the static of other people's energy. You become clear, you become powerful, you become you. Not the version of you that's always overwhelmed and overextended, but the version that is fully awake, fully aligned, fully alive. You didn't come here to carry everyone's pain. You came here to awaken their power, and to do that you must first reclaim your own. Let your empathy be your compass, not your cage. Let your sensitivity be your superpower, not your suffering. And let your sense of responsibility evolve into something sacred. Not to save, but to serve, with boundaries, with clarity, and with purpose. Empathy with authority, becoming a powerful, soft-hearted leader in a spiritually numb world. There's a myth we've been fed, and many empaths have swallowed it whole, that softness and power cannot coexist, that if you feel deeply you must be fragile, that if you're compassionate you must be easy to manipulate, that if you lead with your heart you can't lead with authority. But what if that's the biggest lie ever told to the most powerful souls on this planet? What if your softness is not your weakness, but the core of your leadership? What if, in a spiritually numb world, your ability to feel is not only rare, it's revolutionary? The world doesn't need more leaders who are disconnected, hardened, or power-hungry. It's drowning in them. What we need, what the world is starving for, are leaders who can still feel, leaders who can hold space for complexity, leaders who can discern truth in a sea of noise, leaders who are rooted in something deeper than ego, deeper than success, deeper than the need to be seen. And that's you. That's what an empath chosen one was born for. You've probably resisted this role most of your life. The spotlight felt uncomfortable. The title felt too heavy. The idea of leading others when you were still learning to lead yourself felt contradictory. But here's the sacred paradox. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You don't have to have it all figured out to begin. You just have to be willing to show up, willing to listen, willing to lead with a heart that hasn't been hardened by the world, even though it's had every reason to close. Empathy isn't passive, it's not weak, it's not emotional overload. Empathy is spiritual intelligence. It's the ability to connect with the soul of a person, a situation, or even a collective energy, and know what's really going on beneath the surface. That's a kind of sight that can't be taught in books or business schools. It's ancient, it's intuitive, it's divine. And when you pair that level of insight with grounded boundaries, clear vision, and the courage to speak truth, you become unstoppable. So how do we step into this kind of leadership? First, we stop apologizing for who we are. We stop shrinking to make others comfortable. We stop questioning our worth just because our path looks different. You were never meant to lead like everyone else. You were meant to lead like you, with presence, with depth, with a frequency that shifts the atmosphere, not by force, but by resonance. People feel you before they understand you. That's your gift. Second, we lead by example. In a disconnected world, authenticity is magnetic. When people see you honoring your energy, protecting your peace and respecting your own boundaries, they learn to do the same. When they see you navigating life with your heart open and your spirit grounded, they begin to trust that it's safe to do the same. Your life becomes a permission slip, not just to feel, but to lead from feeling. And third, we remember that leadership is not about control, it's about capacity. The capacity to hold opposing truths, the capacity to stay centered in chaos, the capacity to walk into a broken system and bring healing without losing yourself. That's not something everyone can do, but empaths can. We've been doing it all our lives, quietly, behind the scenes, without recognition. Now it's time to do it consciously, with power, with presence, with purpose. So let me ask you something only a soul like yours can answer. What would your life look like if you stopped hiding your sensitivity and started leading with it? What kind of world could we create if empaths stopped surviving and started stepping up? You are not too soft to lead. You are not too emotional to carry influence. You are exactly what this world needs. A heart that still beats in rhythm with truth. A soul that still remembers what really matters. A voice that doesn't just speak, but resonates. You are the new model of leadership. You are the bridge between power and compassion. You are empathy with authority, and your time is now. Lead us, not with noise, but with presence, not with perfection, but with truth, and not with fear, but with the sacred fire that's been burning in your heart all along.